Okay, so it is exactly 9:32 p.m.
Yeah.
I really want you to picture this scene because I know you have been there. You are on your couch, phone in hand.
And the group chat is just completely blowing up.
Right. Maybe it is your college friends or work colleagues.
Yeah.
A hot topic just dropped.
Could be political or just some kind of wild office drama.
Yeah, and the opinions are flying. Camp A is absolutely furious. Camp B is super defensive. The tone is just, it's absolute.
Everyone is an expert suddenly.
Exactly. And you are reading everything. You actually have a thought, a really specific, nuanced thought.
You start typing?
You type it out, you look at the little blinking cursor, you backspace, you rephrase it to be a little softer, you look at it again, and then what do?
You hold down the backspace button, delete the whole thing, and just turn off your phone.
Every single time.
Yeah.
And that moment, that very specific split-second decision to delete and retreat, that is what we are unpacking today.
It is such a universal experience.
It really is. We have a stack of research here for today's deep dive into a concept the source material calls Tia Chinh Kien.
Which is a Vietnamese phrase that is, well, it's actually pretty tricky to translate perfectly into English.
It directly translates to something like lacking an opinion or lacking a view, right?
Roughly, yeah. But it carries a much heavier weight than that. It implies a lack of conviction or even a lack of backbone.
Right, it sounds like an insult. Like you lack conviction, it sounds weak.
Very weak. Or just vague.
But the mission of this deep dive isn't to judge you for that moment at 9:32 p.m. It's to understand it. We want to know, is deleting that text a sign that you don't know enough? Is it a lack of intelligence?
Or is it something much more primal? Is it actually a lack of courage?
So to figure this out, we are going to look at this through a few different lenses today. We are covering the psychology of why we trade our stance for acceptance, the social structures that actively reward conformity.
And my personal favorite, Stoic philosophy. We are talking Epictetus, Seneca, Marcus Aurelius.
Because it turns out Roman emperors and slaves dealt with this too.
Oh, absolutely. They dealt with the ancient equivalent of internet trolls all the time.
So let's start with the psychology segment, because the source makes a really bold claim right off the bat. It says that lacking conviction rarely starts with ignorance. It starts with avoidance.
Right. It's not that we don't have thoughts. It's that we don't want to pay the price of speaking.
But we tell ourselves a different story, don't we?
Oh, constantly. We say, I'm just not sure yet, or I really need to do more research before I weigh in.
And sometimes that is true.
Sometimes. But often, deep down, it's not that we can't think. It's just that the tax of speaking is too high.
The tax of speaking. That makes it sound like transaction.
It is a transaction, and the cost is entirely biological. You have to understand that for the vast majority of human history, social exclusion wasn't just sad, it was literally a death sentence.
Because you needed the tribe.
Exactly. If you were kicked out of the tribe 10,000 years ago, you didn't just have a lonely Friday night. You died. You starved, or a predator got you.
So my brain just hasn't updated its software.
Not at all. Your amygdala, your lizard brain, treats the gaze of others as a physical threat.
Wow.
When you think about posting that controversial opinion and you imagine the room going silent, your body releases cortisol. It perceives actual danger.
It's screaming, predator.
Yes.
See, that feels so traumatic, though. I mean, I know rationally that if I disagree with my friends about a movie or some public policy, I am not going to be eaten by a lion.
You know that rationally, but your nervous system does not. That is why your heart rate goes up. That is why your palms sweat.
It's just an ancient reflex.
The source calls this the psychology of silence. It's a pure survival mechanism.
There is a quote here from Seneca that fits this perfectly. He talks about crowd infection.
Seneca was brilliant on this exact topic. He argued that we are infected by the crowd because the crowd has better arguments.
Right, we don't suddenly agree with the mob because they use great logic.
Exactly. We get infected because we have a desperate, primal need to belong to the body, to just be safe inside the herd.
Which sets up this massive battle in our heads. The source text describes it as a parallel conflict.
This is where it gets really uncomfortable.
Yeah, because on one side, you have the desire for honesty, the urge to say, hey, I actually think this idea is flawed. But on the other side, you have the desire for harmony and acceptance.
And when those two forces collide, harmony usually wins, because harmony feels safe. Honesty feels dangerous.
The material gave a couple of really good examples of this, and I want to dig into them because they felt a little too real. One was the university student.
We have all been this person.
Oh, definitely. You were in a huge lecture hall, the professor's making an argument, and you spot a crack in it. A glaring logical fallacy.
You know it doesn't add up.
But you look around, everyone else is just furiously taking notes. Everyone else seems to buy it completely.
So you start to think, well, maybe I'm the idiot.
Or you think, if I raise my hand right now, I become the problem. I become the difficult student.
So you stay quiet to protect your position and your grade.
But let's scale that up.
Yep.
Because hopefully we aren't all still sitting in lecture halls. The other example was the employee.
Ah, yes. This is the one that actively kills companies.
This is the Abilene paradox in action, right?
Oh, absolutely. Picture a strategy meeting. The boss pitches a brand new direction. It's clearly risky, maybe even practically impossible.
But the boss is super excited.
Right. And the star employee is nodding along. The whole room is suddenly buzzing with this entirely manufactured enthusiasm.
And you are sitting there thinking, this project is going to crash and burn.
But do you say that out loud? No. You nod, you smile, you say, great initiative.
And then 6 months later, when the project fails, everyone looks around and says, how did this happen?
It happened because everyone in that room was paying for their own safety with their silence.
That brings up a really sharp point from the deep dive. The text challenges us to stop calling this prudence.
We love doing that.
We do. We love to say, I was just being wise, or I was just picking my battles.
I'm playing the long game.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the source says no. That wasn't wisdom. That was fear disguised as strategy.
That is a gut punch. Because real wisdom implies you have an actual goal you are working toward. Fear just means you are hiding.
So it's just avoiding responsibility.
Exactly. And look, the source isn't saying you should be a contrarian jerk in every single meeting just to prove you have a spine. But we have to distinguish between tactical silence and cowardly silence.
Okay, so how do we know the difference?
Tactical silence is when you hold back because speaking now won't be effective, but you fully plan to address it later in a better setting.
And cowardly silence.
Cowardly silence is when you hold back simply because you don't want to deal with the heat.
Okay, so we have this biological wiring that makes us want to shut up and fit in, but then we step out into the modern world, and it feels like society is weaponizing that exact wiring.
Completely. This is what the source calls the social paradox.
Break that down for us.
We live in a culture that claims to absolutely obsess over individuality. We love the poster of the rebel. We love the whole think different marketing.
We tell kids to just be yourself.
But try being yourself in a junior high hallway.
Good luck.
Right. Because in practice, our institution school, corporate hierarchies, social clubs, they reward smooth coordination. They reward a frictionless existence.
Talk about school for a second. You aren't really graded on challenging the premise of the question.
No, you are graded on giving the exact right answer the teacher expects to see on the rubric.
And then you graduate and take that exact same conditioning into the workplace, where being the person who constantly questions the workflow is not seen as innovative.
Not at all. It is seen as annoying. You are disrupting the synergy.
So we learn very quickly that the reward system is built for conformity, even if the marketing is built for individuality.
And I think this is the real accelerant. You drop the algorithm factor on top of it.
This changes everything. Because traditional social pressure was local. You just had to agree with your village.
Now you are dealing with a global, instantaneous feedback loop.
The source argues that social media demands speed above literally everything else.
Think about the architecture of a digital feed. It moves constantly. If a news story breaks, the implicit demand is, what is your take?
Right now, pick a side immediately.
And if you don't have a take, you are invisible. You are seen as vague.
But if you have a nuanced take, if you try to say, well, it's actually really complicated,
you get absolutely crushed. Algorithms don't promote it's complicated. They promote outrage and absolute certainty.
So if you say, I don't have enough information yet to form an opinion, that isn't viewed as wisdom anymore. In the digital age, that is viewed as evasion.
It looks like you don't care. Or worse, that you are secretly on the bad side and just afraid to admit it.
Because if you pick a side but you aren't extreme enough, people say you lack passion.
Precisely. Nuance is treated as weakness, and this creates a terrifying incentive structure. It pushes us to adopt opinions we haven't actually earned just to have something to wear to the party.
Opinions we haven't earned. I like that phrasing. It's like fast fashion for your brain.
That is a great analogy. It's fast fashion intellect. It is cheap. It falls apart if you tug on it even a little bit. But it looks good for the photo.
Now, Seneca, our Stoic guide, he had a counterpoint to this need for speed and constant noise, didn't he?
He did. And this is where the definition of conviction gets really interesting. Seneca noted that wise people often speak less than the crowd.
But wait, isn't that what we just argued against? Isn't silence the problem we're trying to solve?
Here is the nuance. Seneca's silence isn't about fear, it's about timing. He argues that a person of conviction doesn't need to bark at every passing car.
Right, they speak when their words can actually impact the listener.
Exactly. But in a fast-paced world, slowing down looks like weakness. That Stoic silence is very hard to distinguish from fearful silence.
Because if you are quiet online, people just assume you are checking out.
Right. And that brings us to the true cost. The source material is very clear about this. Society makes holding a unique, well-thought-out opinion incredibly expensive.
If you are the online moderate, the person who says, hey, maybe both sides have a valid point here, you don't get a pat on the back.
You get attacked by both sides.
You are suddenly the enemy of everyone.
So most people do the math. They say, the cost of speaking my mind is too high. The cost of parroting the group is low. So they retreat and pay the low price.
But, and here is the major pivot in the deep dive, the source argues there is a massive hidden cost to that low price.
You might not pay in social capital, but you pay in something else entirely.
The existential drop.
Yes.
Which sounds like a sci-fi horror movie title.
Yeah.
What exactly is the existential drop?
It is the long-term erosion of your identity. The text describes it through the chameleon effect.
Okay, let's walk through that.
Let's say on Monday, you are hanging out with your liberal friends, so you nod along to their talking points because you want to fit in.
Makes sense.
Then on Tuesday, you are with your conservative colleagues, so you laugh at their jokes to fit in there.
And you tell yourself you aren't lying. You are just being flexible.
You tell yourself you are just being polite. But if you do that for a year or 10 years, you aren't just being polite anymore. You are actively forgetting what you actually believe.
It's like a muscle atrophy.
Exactly. Identity is a muscle. Conviction is a muscle. If you never use your no, if you never push back against the pressure, that muscle withers away.
You don't wake up one day and scream, I have no self. It's a quiet, slow erosion.
A small wearing away of self-respect. You eventually become a mirror. You just reflect whatever is standing in front of you.
The source actually shared a personal confession about this that I found really striking.
Yes, the author talked about calling their own silence strategy when deep down it just felt like a profound loss of honesty.
That is actually terrifying. The idea that you could wake up and realize you were just a collection of other people's safe opinions.
That is the drop. It's the loss of the core self. Marcus Aurelius has this beautiful, almost violent metaphor for preventing this. He talks about the rock and the waves.
Paint the picture for us.
He says to be like the rock that the waves crash against. It stands perfectly still, and the fury of the water just falls to rest around it.
It is so solid. It isn't stubbornness, it's just an internal anchor.
And notice, the rock isn't fighting the water. It's not screaming at the water. It just is. The source argues that most of us are not the rock. We are the driftwood. We go wherever the current pushes us because we have no anchor.
This connects perfectly to Epictetus, too.
Yeah.
He was the slave-turned-philosopher. He had very little control over his life, physically speaking.
Right. He couldn't control his body, his freedom, or his location. But his core teaching was about what we actually control.
The rule of choices.
He said the only thing that is truly yours, the only thing that cannot be taken from you by a tyrant or a crowd is your own judgment. Your ability to say, this is true or this is false.
So if I let the group chat decide what I think, I am voluntarily giving away the only thing I actually own.
You are handing it over to external pressure. To Epictetus, that is the ultimate tragedy. Not being in chains, but choosing to chain your own mind to the opinion of others.
Okay, let's bring this down from the philosophical clouds back to street level, because we have established that this is incredibly hard. It is fighting biology, and it is fighting society.
It is an uphill battle.
The source lists some specific real-world collisions where we actually have to make this choice.
Let's look at the gossiping friends scenario. This is a classic test of the anchor.
We have all been there. You are out for drinks. Someone starts tearing into a mutual acquaintance. Maybe it's a little funny, but it's really cruel. It clearly crosses a line.
And the whole group is laughing. The energy is high. Bonding is happening through this shared negativity.
So what do? Do you laugh to keep the peace?
That is the moment of truth. If you laugh, you buy safety. You buy connection. But you sell your integrity to get it.
And if you don't laugh, or if you actually say, hey, stop, that's not cool.
The air instantly leaves the room. It gets incredibly awkward. You have just become the moral buzzkill.
And the source asks a brutal question here. Are you changing your mind and your behavior because you actually agree with the cruelty? or simply because you want to be accepted by the cruel?
That is the hardest truth. Why am I doing this? Stoicism gives us a very hard definition of an opinion here.
Which is?
A Stoic opinion isn't about just being stubborn or wanting to be right. It is about being consistent with reason. If your reason tells you this is wrong, but your action is to laugh, you are in conflict with yourself. You are broken.
But let's be real, and I really want to push on this because I know listeners are thinking it. There is a steep price to being the rock.
A very steep price.
If I stop laughing at the jokes, or if I speak up in that strategy meeting to point out the flaw, I might lose those friends. I might lose that promotion.
You absolutely might, and I'm glad you brought that up because the source material does not sugarcoat this at all. This isn't some fluffy self-help advice that says just be yourself and everyone will love you.
Yeah, that is usually a lie.
It is a complete lie. If you keep your conviction, the source lists the losses explicitly. You will likely lose popularity with the majority.
You lose the label of being easygoing.
You might stop getting invitations to those safe circles. You become known as difficult.
So why do it? Why pay that massive price?
Seneca gives us the answer, and it is one of my absolute favorite reality checks in all of philosophy. He says, seekers of truth should not expect to be loved.
Wow. That is bleak, but also kind of freeing.
It is incredibly freeing. It releases you from the expectation of applause. This isn't romantic, it's highly practical.
If you prioritize truth or reason, you are inevitably going to cause friction with people who prioritize comfort.
You cannot have both the safety of the herd and the integrity of the individual at all times. You just have to choose what you value more.
There is one last scenario the source mentions that I think is really powerful, especially in our current era. The I don't know.
Yes, the sheer courage to say, I don't have enough info to conclude.
In a world that demands instant hot takes, is saying, I don't know, actually a form of conviction?
It is perhaps the strongest form. Think about the intense pressure to have an opinion on literally everything right now.
Interest rates, geopolitics, celebrity trials.
To stand in the middle of that storm and say, I have not studied this enough to have a view, requires immense internal strength.
It is refusing to let the algorithm dictate your pace.
Exactly. It's saying, my judgment is valuable. I will not spend it cheaply just to blend in. That is the ultimate Stoic move. You are hoarding your assent until you are actually ready to give it.
So as we wrap this up, we have traveled a really long way from that 9:32 p.m. text message.
We really have.
We started by asking if silence was just being smart or being scared. And the framing here is so crucial.
I think the ultimate conclusion is that lacking conviction isn't about low intelligence. It is entirely about responsibility. It's about not wanting to carry the heavy backpack of standing alone.
What are you actually protecting when you stay silent? Is it your safety, your image, or your honesty?
The source ends with a thought experiment that I want to leave everyone with. It is a visualization that kind of strips all the noise away.
The invisible observer test.
Right. I want you, the listener, to really imagine this. Imagine that tomorrow, you wake up and no one is watching you.
No social media followers, no boss.
No friends judging you, no political factions to impress, no likes, no dislikes. You are completely invisible to the social gaze.
In that silence, in that total vacuum, would your opinions change?
Would you still post what you post?
Would you still laugh at what you laugh at? Would you still agree with what you agreed with in that meeting?
If the answer is yes, my opinions would shift the moment the pressure was gone, then you have to ask yourself a very uncomfortable question.
Are you truly living as yourself right now? Or are you just the reflection of the crowd?
Let that sit for a minute. If you are just a mirror, maybe it is time to try being a rock.
If you're going to pay a high price either way, you might as well get to keep your own mind. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us. We will see you next time.